Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this invitation to speak at this year's Asia Briefing Live. We're now into the second year of COVID-19. The virus is now endemic and will be a permanent presence in humanity. The emergence of new variants, in particular the Delta variant, which we know has greater infectivity, has caused huge waves of secondary infection everywhere, despite the unprecedented speed of vaccine development. And yet, vaccine access and vaccine hesitancy remain a challenge in significant parts of the world. Furthermore, we also see a sharpening of the geopolitical tensions, in particular the US-China tensions, and the emerging strategic rearrangements like AUKUS and the Quad. And Asia is really at the confluence of all these strategic fault lines. Today, I will focus my remarks on first, the impact of the US-China relations on our region. Second, the exigent need to engage Southeast Asia on our own merits. And third, the role of Australia and Singapore. So let me begin with the most consequential bilateral relationship in the world, the US-China relationship. China's strategic and economic influence has grown, and today it demands to be treated as an equal. The US remains preeminent. It now sees China as a strategic peer competitor, something that is really quite unprecedented for the United States. And China sees itself as an alternative center of influence and source of prosperity. The strategic choices that both these countries make, including whether they can work together to uphold a stable and peaceful rules-based international order and meet the challenges of managing the global commons, will determine international peace and stability. Actually, the US and China are not inevitable enemies. Strategic competition between the two powers does not need to descend into conflict. The US and China are both aware of this. US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping both alluded to this in their recent speeches to the UN General Assembly, which I just returned from a week ago. President Biden said that all major powers have a duty to carefully manage their relationships so that they do not tip from responsible competition into conflict. Similarly, President Xi emphasized the point that it should not be a zero-sum game. One does not need to achieve success at the expense of the other. I do not think that either side wants a collision. Both are painfully aware of the enormous consequences if a collision occurs, whether by design or, more likely, unwittingly by accident. We hope that both parties will work out a modus vivendi that will allow for cooperation in areas of mutual interest, even as competition remains in many other areas. We are in the midst of this strategic rebalancing, readjustment, and recalibration of the US-China relationship. And Southeast Asia, which has been at the crossroads of civilizations and trade routes for many centuries, is where the action will be for at least the next couple of decades. Southeast Asia wants to be engaged on our own merits, rather than to be seen purely through the lens of the US-China competition. We believe that an open and inclusive regional architecture is the best way for countries big and small to be able to prosper and to do so peacefully. We believe there are huge opportunities for our region, and our external partners in fact have significant equities right here, and we welcome them to remain engaged. Southeast Asia has 650 million people, a combined GDP of US $3 trillion, which, by the way, will more than double in the next 2 decades. ASEAN is projected to be the fourth largest single market by 2030, after the EU, US, and China. The US is the largest investor in Southeast Asia. With a larger stock of investment in the region, than what it has cumulatively invested in China, India, Japan, and South Korea combined. China has been ASEAN's largest trading partner for the past 12 years. But what many people don't realize is that ASEAN has now become China's largest trading partner since 2020. Australia's trade with ASEAN countries is larger than Australia's trade with Japan and the US. There are therefore many areas for regional cooperation, and let me briefly touch on three of them: the COVID-19 recovery, the digital economy, and climate change. In the immediate term, countries are focused on recovery from COVID-19, and in particular, managing this transition from a COVID-0 strategy to a COVID resilience strategy. And all of us need to work together on this recovery, helping each other with medical supplies and vaccines, sharing experiences, working together on R&D, as well as real-time information sharing. And in the longer term, we need to take forward the recommendations of the G20 High-Level Independent Panel to address major gaps in pandemic preparedness, to strengthen the multilateral support for the WHO and the UN, and to mobilize resources for our collective security. Because this is a clear example where no one is safe until everyone is safe. Second, COVID-19 has in fact accelerated the digital revolution, with the digital economy a key new area of growth. Southeast Asia's digital economy is projected to grow threefold by 2025. But the digital divide is also widening around the world and within countries. Digitalization requires a concerted global response. There are many opportunities, in fact, for the digital economy cooperation. And the examples include the Digital Economy Agreement between Singapore and Australia, the Digital Economy Partnership between Singapore, New Zealand, and Chile, and the WTO Joint Statement Initiative on E-commerce that Singapore and Australia co-lead together with Japan. We need a global framework to maximize the opportunities and to deal with the challenges posed by the digital revolution. There are several paths that we can take. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' proposal for a global digital compact is one. Another possibility is a new UN Convention on Digital Transformation for Sustainable Development, or a framework of norms and principles. And I look forward to a global architecture that is open, inclusive, and interoperable, and that will help us manage the digital commons in order to maximize opportunities and reduce the divide. Third, climate change is an existential threat that requires concerted global response. The August 2021 Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report found that without a drastic and rapid reduction in emissions, global temperatures are likely to rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next 2 decades. And this will disproportionately impact developing countries and island states, including especially those of us in Southeast Asia. The fight against climate change will be a stark litmus test of our ability to manage the global commons through multilateral action. And cooperation between China and the US, the two largest global emitters, will be absolutely critical. At the same time, the digital economy presents many opportunities for our region to work with key partners in both the US and China in developing new and innovative solutions in areas including energy infrastructure and finance for green opportunities. So, where does Australia fit into this picture? We welcome Australia's continued constructive engagement of our region. The ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Area is one of the most comprehensive ASEAN Plus free trade agreements in force. Australia is already making significant efforts to engage our region in the three areas I mentioned earlier. Australia has made significant contributions to ASEAN's COVID-19 recovery efforts, such as through its Regional Vaccines Access and Health Security Initiative for the Pacific and Southeast Asia. And Australia has made vaccine donations to Southeast Asian countries as well. Australia is also working with Singapore in pursuing forward-looking and ambitious pathfinding initiatives. I mentioned the Digital Economy Agreement earlier. We are now discussing a Green Economy Agreement as well. And these could be pathfinders for regional agreements in both the digital economy and green economy. Australia's participation in our region helps keep our regional architecture open. Australia has always been a strong supporter of ASEAN centrality since becoming ASEAN's first dialogue partner way back in 1974. Australia is also part of several overlapping regional frameworks, including the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting Plus, the RCEP, the CPTPP, and the almost 5-decade-old Five-Power Defence Arrangement. Even if you don't remember all this alphabet soup, the key point is that Australia has been an integral part of our region. Now, the newly announced AUKUS is something which we hope, and I speak now from the perspective of Singapore, we hope that AUKUS will contribute constructively to the peace and stability of our region and the world, and that it will complement the existing regional architecture that is open and inclusive with ASEAN at its center. So I would like to sum up with 3 key points. 1, in the strategic recalibration of the US-China relationship, constructive competition and cooperation between these 2 major superpowers is absolutely necessary and indeed possible. The converse outcome would be catastrophe for everyone. 2, Southeast Asia should be recognized and engaged for our own merits and not viewed merely as an arena for proxy major power rivalry. 3, COVID-19, the digital economy, and climate change are 3 areas where regional partners can cooperate with all of us in Southeast Asia in dealing with this challenge of the global commons. So I look forward to further discussions on these issues with you and a robust Q&A with Haslinda. Thank you all very much.